Hello dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. DC Saxena, Professor and Head of the Department of Food Engineering and Technology at Sant Longowal Institute of Engineering and Technology, Longowal. I am presenting you the paper Technology of Spices and Condiments, and you will be giving knowledge about the processing of cloves in the present module by my co-author Mr. Mandeep Singh.
Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Mandeep Singh from Sant Longowal Institute of Engineering and Technology. Today I am going to talk about module number 31, which is of paper number 10, that is Technology of Spices and Condiments. This module deals with the processing, drying and the risk factors related to the processing of clove fruit and its powder. Cloves being used as a dried product is useful due to its aromatic properties and essential oils. Thus, during processing, preservation of aroma and other essential components of cloves are thus to be considered at high priority. The details of process and preventive measures for the hazards are discussed in details in this module. Now let us see about the clove. Clove is a dry, pungent and aromatic floral bud. When dry, it turns into rust brown color. Cloves have exceptional aromatic smell and are very useful to cooks around the world. Cloves are used for sweet breads and stewed fruits. Clove is also used to flavor plain rice and they are used to season meats as well. Clove was originally a native of Indonesia and the Philippines. However, other countries like Madagascar, East Africa, Brazil, and a couple of few in the Caribbean produce clove in a commercial quantities. A large percentage of a clove produced worldwide is used in the kitchen. Industrially, clove is a process to produce clove oil, which is very useful both as a medicine in a cooking. Medicinal value of a clove is endless. Clove can be used in the treatment to treat ingestion problems, diarrhea, hernia, ringworm, athlete's foot, and other fungal infections. As a quality exporter of a clove, one must process the clove prior to its export. It is best to illustrate the care when the processing methods are employed. Cloves come from small, straight, trunked, cornical trees that are evergreen throughout the year. Clove is the nail-shaped flower bud picked just prior to the flower opening. These buds average about 0.75 inches long at harvest. The first yield from a seed comes only when the crop is 6 to 8 years old. After they are harvested, the cloves are dried on mats for several days. During sunny weather or machine dried during monsoon season. Following module will cover the processing of clove and includes the brief introduction concerned with the plant physiology, followed by the various processing steps. The processing of clove includes harvesting, pre-treatment, drying, winnowing, and grinding. Thereafter, the packaging and the storage process. Scientific classification of clove is as follows. Clove being and a plant is placed in a kingdom Plantae, and due to flowering plant it is included under angiosperms. It follows the characteristic of order Myrtales and family Myrtaceae. Genus is Syzygium and the common species utilized is Syzygium aromaticum. Cloves are the unopened flower buds of evergreen tree Eugenia caryophyllus. This angiospermic plant belongs to order Myrtales. The flower develop in clusters of 3 to 10 groups. The young leaves are bright pink and change to a greenish yellow and harden. Clove must be dried before they are stored and sold for market. The timing of harvest of the clove bud is critical. The buds should be harvested before the purple or crimson flowers start to develop. Clusters of flower buds are hand-picked from the branches. It is important that the branches are not removed or damaged, as this will reduce the yield of future crops. The tree is native to Moluccas, that is the Spice Island, a part of Indonesian islands. Zanzibar and Pemba are now the world's largest producer of cloves. We will discuss that what parts of cloves are useful. Whereas clove can be obtained from different regions and different respective seasons. For example, from Zanzibar it can obtain from September to January. From Madagascar we can obtain clove between the season of November to February. Similarly for Comoros, whereas for Indonesia we may obtain clove in the season of May to February. The leaves, the flowers and the bark are aromatic. The flowers are small and produced in great profusion in cluster. The ripe fruit resembles an olive in shape but is smaller. It is dark red and is sometimes sold in a dried state under the name mother clove. In this form, it has an aroma and flavor similar to those of clove but much weaker. The flower buds are gathered and dried by exposure to the smoke of wood fire and to the rays of the sun. What are cloves commonly used for? In Indonesia, great amount of cloves are grown and imported to manufacture the kretek cigarettes. South Asians love to chew betel nuts flavored with cloves. Cloves also used for cooking in every household. In France, it is an ingredient crucial to any stock in a whole onion studded with cloves. Whole cloves make lovely pomander balls. Their scent can linger in the air for years. Ground cloves are used in desserts, liquor, spice cakes, mincemeat pieces, pumpkin pies, custards, and fruit cakes. Oil is obtained from clove by repeated distillation. In dentistry, the oil is used as anesthetic and sometimes as an antiseptic agent. Besides these, it is also used in a perfume and soaps. A brief introduction of clove bud. The timing of harvest of clove bud is critical. The bud should be harvested before the purple or crimson flower starts to develop. Clusters of flower buds are hand-picked from the branches. It is important that the branches are not removed or damaged, as this will reduce the yield of future crops. Figure shows the clove dried unopened flower bud. There are many other regional names of clove. For example, in Arabic, it is known as Kabsh Quranfil. In Bulgarian, it is known as Karamfil. In French, it is known as Gyrofier. In German, it is called Nelke, and in Indian language, it is known as Long. Now, we will discuss about the planting and sowing of cloves. First of all, we will discuss the seeds and the sowing conditions. Clove is propagated through seeds obtained from fully developed fruits known as mother of clove. Collectively, fully developed fruits from regular bearing mother trees. Dehusk the fruits immediately after collection by soaking in water and peeling. Prepare raised nursery beds with fertile soil rich in humus under the shades of trees. Sow the seeds flat at a depth 2 to 5 cm and a spacing of 12 to 15 cm. Water the beds regularly. Seedlings can either be retained in the nursery till they attain a height of 25 to 30 cm when they are ready for transplanting, or potted when they are 6 months old and transplanted after another 12 to 18 months. Now, the planting. Select 18-month-old seedling for planting. Prepare pits of specified size and spacing about a month in advance of planting. Allow to weather. Fill up the pits with a mixture of burnt earth, compost, and topsoil. Plant the seedlings during the rainy season, May to June or August to September. Provide shade and irrigation during breaks in the monsoon and summer. Banana may be planted to provide shades. Clove is generally grown as mixed crop with coffee, coconut, and arecanut. Manuring and weed management of clove. Apply cattle manure or compost at a rate of 15 kg per tree per annum during May-June. The recommended fertilizer dose is nitrogen to phosphorus ratio of NP205 K20 at 20, 18 and 50 per gram plant during the first year, which increases gradually as the well-grown trees of 15 years or more. Apply organic manures in May-June with the commencement of southwest monsoon. Apply fertilizers in 2 equal splits, does in May to June along with the organic manures, and in September-October in shallow trenches dug around the plant about 1 to 1.25 meter away from the base. After cultivation, conduct weeding and intercultivation whenever necessary. Cut and remove dead and diseased branches of full-grown trees to prevent overcrowding. Spray 1% Borax mixture to control dieback infestation of shoot borer cynozolan species on a tender shoots of young plants can be prevented by prophylactic application of carbaryl 0.15%. Prune off the laterals of old trees showing dieback symptoms. Do not allow dried Gliricidia and other twigs to remain in the plantation to ensure that the beetles will not multiply on these materials and subsequently initiate infestation in clove. Leaf spot, twig blight, and a flower bud shedding. 3 types of symptoms are seen, viz. Leaf spot, twig blight, and flower bud shedding. On the leaves, necrotic spots of a variable size and shape are noticed. Severely affected leaves wither, drop, and dry up. In the nursery seedlings, dieback symptoms are seen. Extension of the symptoms from the leaves through petioles result in the infection of twigs. The affected branches stand without leaves or only with young leaves at tips. The flower buds are attacked by spread of infection from the twigs. Shedding of flower buds occur during the period of heavy and continuous rainfall. Now the control. Spraying 1% Borax mixture at 1 to 1.5 month intervals reduces disease intensity, defoliation, and flower bud shedding. The spraying has to be commenced just prior to flower bud formation and continued till the harvest of flower buds for effective control. Destruction of the weed Clerodendron from the clove garden is recommended to reduce the disease since the pathogen survives on this weed during the adverse condition. There are various steps involved in the processing of cloves, which are harvesting, pre-treatment, drying, winnowing, grinding, packaging, and storage. The young leaves of the clove tree are bright pink and change to a greenish yellow as they mature. The correct time of a harvest is when the outer green leaves, that is the calyx of the flower bud, changes from olive green to yellow pink, and before petals fall to expose the stamens. Solar drying is the cheapest and the popular mode of drying agriculture products. The dry clove bud enters to the milling unit in which milling and pulverization operations are carried out. The power is then sifted and tested according to standard procedures depending on the target market. It is then packed for a sales and a storage for further use. Each of these processing steps are discussed in a detail as following. Now move on the harvesting part. The time for harvesting is when the clove tree is of 6 to 8 years old. Harvesting period is critical for clove bud. It should be harvested before the development of purple or crimson flowers. When the outer green leaves, that is the calyx of a flower bud, changes from olive green to yellow pink, this is considered as the best time for harvesting. Also, this period is marked as prior to the petal falls. Clusters of flower buds are hand-picked from the branches. It is important that the branches are not removed or damaged, as this will reduce the yield of future crops. The processing of clove. In this section, we will discuss the pre-treatments for the clove. After harvest, the buds are removed from stalk manually by detaching it from the stalks by holding a cluster in one hand, pressing it against the palm of another hand. The stems and the buds are separated and dried separately. The stems should not be dumped or thrown away, but can be processed for oil distillation. Proper care for hygiene should be taken before hand rubbing of flour takes place. Hands should be washed and disinfected properly. After the harvesting, buds are commonly dried, but before grinding, winnowing, and separation of dust particles should be removed. This processing is important as after grinding, separation of dust particle will not be processed. Drying. Buds should be processed or dried as soon as possible as they start to ferment. Sun drying is the common process used, but other type of dryers may be used. The final moisture content of the dried cloves should be 8 to 10%. Experienced clove dryers will know when the cloves are fully dry, as the buds will snap easily. The United States government and American Spice Trade Association standards for cloves are as follows. The moisture content should be less than 8 to 10%. The extraneous material should be less than 1%, and the moldy buds should also be lower than 1%. Now, winnowing and grinding. Winnowing is done to remove dust and other foreign material. Small cleaning machines are available that use a blower to remove the dirt and dust. Grinding can be a method of adding value to a product. It is not advisable to grind Spices. After grinding, spices are more vulnerable to spoilage. The flavor and aroma compounds are not stable and will quickly disappear from ground products. Now let's move on to packaging. Packaging is an important process when we are dealing with the dried products. These dried products contains oils which on a gaining moisture cause oxidation of the oils that affects the quality of a product and lowers their nutritional as well as their market value. Cloves can be packaged in a polythene bags of a various sizes according to the market demand and the processing if required further. The bags should be sealed to prevent the moisture entering, and the reason for this has already been discussed above. However, intact food can be packed in a jute bags, bales, boxes, and a bath mats. Now, storage. Dried cloves must be stored away from a direct sunlight and must be stored in a moisture-proof packaging material. Also ensure that the cloves are fully dried before storage. Storage in a dried condition is required as a moisture will cause the cloves to rot and it starts ferment. The stored cloves should be inspected regularly for the sign of spoilage or moisture. If they have absorbed moisture, then they should be re-dried to a moisture content of 10% to avoid rotting and fermentation, which lowers their market value. The products of clove. First of all, clove bud oil. The essential oil is obtained by steam distillation of comminuted buds or whole cloves. On distillation, about 17% essential oil is obtained, which is a colorless or yellow liquid possessing odor and flavor characteristic of the spice. Finest oil contains 85 to 89% eugenol. Clove bud is used for flavoring food and in perfumery. Next is clove stem oil. Clove stem oil is obtained from dried peduncles and stem of clove buds with 5 to 7% on steam distillation. The eugenol content of the oil ranges from 90 to 95%. This oil possesses a coarser and woodier odor than bud oil. Next is clove leaf oil. Clove leaves on distillation yield 2 to 3% oil as a dark brown liquid with a harsh woody odor. When rectified, it turns pale yellow and smell sweeter with eugenol content of 80 to 85%. Next one is the oleoresins. Clove oleoresin may be prepared by cold or hot extraction of crushed spices using organic solvents like acetone, giving a recovery of 18 to 22%. The oleoresin is chiefly used in perfumery, and when used for flavoring, it is dispersed on salt and flour, etc. Risk factors and control measures or the loss preventions. First of all, temperature. Temperature plays a key role during storage for determining the quality factor. Temperature causes generation of self-heat and affecting the essential oil content of oil causes volatile oils to evaporate. Fruits as well as powdered clove is thus require particular temperature, humidity and moisture with the possible ventilation conditions. Favorable transportation temperature is 5 to 25 degrees Celsius. Clove should be transported in areas which exhibit the lower temperature during voyage and dry in condition. High temperature causes loss of volatile oils. Now, humidity. Spices are good hygroscopic products. They can easily absorb moisture from environment and retain them. This causes the interaction of their essential compounds to get interacted with available water in the presence of air, thus cause oxidation of volatile components and deterioration along with the loss of quality. Mold growth also favored during this condition. Once damp cloves are worthless, relative humidity required for clove storage and processing is 60 to 70% and the moisture content can be acceptable to 16%, but the preferred limit will not exceed 10 to 12%. Equilibrium moisture content required is 65% at maximum. Now, the ventilation. Ventilation is required during the transportation of cloves. Dried powdered product could not be transported without packing. Dried fruit buds are susceptible to absorb moisture if the relative humidity is not maintained. If the transportation of clove is carried out in a complete, dried and a controlled condition, then there is very little requirement of ventilation. Otherwise, if the condition like humidity and moisture content are not controlled, then there must be proper ventilation of the cloves to avoid moistening of cloves. Self-heating during improper storage conditions can cause self-heating of the cloves. All the above discussed factors are interrelated to each other. Risk factors and loss prevention. Now, the biotic activity. Cloves exhibit third order of biotic activity. The biological activities are suspended during drying, but the risk biological contamination due to mold can still cause problem. Now, the self-heating. In addition to residual water content removal from the dried product, the risk of self-heating is also explained by the presence of oil. Oil content of the clove constituent of about 15 to 20% essential oil, whereas 7 to 10% of fatty oils. If the relative humidity of ambient air is too high, then the risk of developing self-heat is also high. The risk is also attainable at high temperature storage. Mechanical influence. Cloves are highly fragile and should be prevented from excessive pressure. Broken flower heads allow the essential oils contained in the cloves to volatilize more readily and thus cause an increased odor intensity. So students, let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. Until modern times, cloves grew only on a few islands in a Maluku Island, historically called the Spice Islands, including Bacan, Makian, Moti, Ternate, and Tidor. Nevertheless, they found their way west to the Middle East and Europe well before the 1st century. Archaeologists found cloves within a ceramic vessel in Syria, along with the evidence dating the find to within a few years of 1721 BC. Cloves were traded by Muslim sailors and merchants during the Middle Ages in a profitable Indian Ocean trade. The clove trade is also mentioned by Ibn Battuta and even famous 1001 Nights characters such as Sinbad the sailor is known to have bought and sold cloves. In the late 15th century, Portugal took over the Indian Ocean trade, including cloves, due to the Treaty of Tordesillas with Spain and a separate treaty with the Sultan of Ternate. The high value of cloves and other spices drove Spain to seek new routes to the Maluku Islands, which would not be seen as trespassing on the Portuguese domain in the Indian Ocean. Therefore, it is concluded from these slides that clove has a trade value as well. Thank you.
So, you must have got the knowledge about the processing of cloves, which has been explained by Mr. Mandeep Singh. Now further, you will be giving knowledge about the essential oil and oleoresins of cloves in the next module. Thank you.